So I had this idea on stream that while I'm also doing the low star legend series talking about all the low rarity servants in the game of FGO, that I should also start talking about the actual free-to-play servants that come from different events, because a lot of them are becoming more and more available. Well, I don't want to say a lot of them, but a couple of them are becoming available in the Rare Mana Prism shop, and I was like, you know what, it would be really good to just have these videos out there so people would be like, hey, is BB worth the Rare Mana Prisms? Spoiler alert, yes. But these would also just be really good to have on the channel for when they do, say, bring back Chloe, or when they bring back, say, Ryder Kentucky, which who knows whenever they're going to do that, but just when they decide to do that, you know, these videos will be available, and I just thought it'd be a really cool idea to throw this out there, because some of these videos I think are also just going to be like, yeah, this servant Chloe is really good, why are they not bringing her back? Like, this is why they need to bring her back, she's so crazy. So I threw it up as a poll over on the community tab, and BB won pretty handily, I would say, and that's for a really good reason. I'm glad she won because I was using her on stream, and I was like, man, I want to find an excuse to talk about this servant, because this servant is just so good as a free-to-play servant. She's just always doing all the good stuff that I want her to do when I bring her. Like, she's just a servant that feels good to use, and so I was like, you know what? This video idea, or the series idea I should say, was the perfect excuse for me to start being able to talk about all these free-to-play servants that I really like using. But before we begin, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet, sweet daily FGO content. Also, make sure you peep those links down in the description down below, because we got stuff like Patreon, other YouTube channels for bonus content, and we also got the Twitch down there if you want to come see me play FGO live at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, usually on weekdays. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and start diving into BB's kit, starting off with her hits. And she's actually got some pretty decent hits. She is a year 2 servant coming out for the first time with the Seraph event, so they gave her some pretty nice hits to work with. 4 hits on both of her quick cards with 14.7% star gen is actually kind of nice. Now, unfortunately, her natural star weight is a bit lower as a Moon Cancer, but don't worry, she has something for that if you want to do some nice crits with her. It does mean, though, that between her 2 quick cards and her 4-hit extra attack, which is unfortunate, would have loved if they gave me the 5-hit extra attack, because as you guys all know, the extra attack is a composite card that gen stars, gens NP, and does big boy damage. Would have loved to see it have the 5 hits to maybe gen a little bit of extra stars, but she'll be able to gen enough that you could probably get some crits on those 2 arts cards, which, even though they seemingly have like a very unimpressive 0.61 NP gain stat, because of those 3 hits on both of them, as long as you're critting on those, you can get some really nice fat NP refund on BB's arts cards, especially because she does have a hidden passive skill that gives her a 10% buff to her arts card. So if you're noticing that she probably refunds a little bit easier than you're expecting, it's because she does just have that 10% arts buff just caked into her kit that's going to make all of her arts cards do more damage, and it's going to increase the NP gain of all of her arts cards, which includes her NP, which has a nice 5 hits on it as well, and some other effects that also make refunding her NP a lot easier. But before we get to that, let's start talking about some of her skills, starting off with the first skill. This is just such a nice skill when it comes to more difficult content, because everything here is very, very strong at keeping somebody around in a challenge quest, but they didn't just make it for BB herself, it's targetable. So she also acts as kind of like a debuff healer on your team, because she can remove one ally's debuffs, give them a 3k heal, and then even patch them up with a little band-aid by giving them 1 instance of debuff immunity that lasts for 3 turns on a low 4-turn cooldown. So if you want to bring Tamamo into your team, you can cut this cooldown in half by giving it that extra 2-turn cooldown that Tamamo has on her NP, making this just a very spammable skill. And it's so nice, you know, if your Castoria gets stunned, because usually Castoria would be your debuff cleanse on her own NP, but maybe she gets stunned, maybe she gets charmed or something, but boom, BB's got you covered, she can cleanse that right up, and she gives something that arts teams are lacking, and that is a heal. Now, technically they have heals if you want to use Lady Avalon, because she gives you the max HP thing, but I've talked about this before. A lot of art setups, like if you're just going to go double Castoria, you're kind of fighting a war of attrition, because once you lose your HP, she has no way to actually heal people with her skills and her NP. So you're kind of just slowly losing HP and hoping that eventually you can take down the enemy. Again, you can mitigate that with someone like Lady Avalon, Tamamo, or if someone like BB, right, the person you're buffing, actually has a heal to give you a little bit more sustain. So I think this is already just a very, very good skill. I think it aged particularly well. The only thing I really think they could do with this to make it even better is if it like gave a 20 to 30% NP gain buff on whoever it targeted, but I feel like that just becomes stupid dummy broken at that point. Maybe it bombs like 20 stars. That also just feels really good as well. She doesn't let up with her second skill because this is another very, very strong skill. It's going to stun whoever you target this towards, and if they happen to have an evasion or an invincibility, she's able to yeet it off. Now, technically, if she had pierce invincibility, that would be better because an enemy can have like an irremovable evasion or an invincibility that you can't remove. So technically, in some scenarios, it's not as good as just flat out having pierce invincibility, but it is still functionally pierce invul and pierce evasion because you can yeet those buffs off and then also punish them by stunning them for a turn. So this does ensure that BB does not get stopped when, like, say you're fighting a coup or something, slaps up their dodges. You can just be like, nope, you're gonna have to take this big mommy NP, which I guess is accurate because she does throw on the nurse outfit for her NP, but that's besides the point. That's going to start making me a little bit upset that the arcade version actually got that as a costume, and I've been fiending for that for like the last couple of years. But again, besides the point, it's still a very, very strong skill because it allows BB as a DPS to get around the enemy's defenses, and it also gives her some survivability because she can stun the enemy and lock them down for a turn, which is really nice. Then finally, there's her third skill. Now, originally, this literally is just Jolter's crit skill, right? It gives you some decent absorption, and then it gives you some really strong 50% crit damage for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown, which is very strong. That's Waver's crit damage buff if you need a reference. And your BB can definitely do some very strong crits. It's also equally good in, say, your art setups, right? Before we get Lady Avalon, who provides a little bit of crit support to these arts teams, because that's, like, again, one of the few things that Castoria doesn't do is crit support. And she can still look really nice with a lot of these crits. Like, that 50% crit damage should not be downplayed at all whatsoever. But then, for some reason, they decided that, like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and buff this skill. We're going to slap on a 30% arts buff for 3 turns, which is ludicrous, right? Because it just gassed up BB's damage a lot, because that's actually 40%. Keep in mind, she has that 10% passive buff. So her NP gain shot through the roof. Her damage shot through the roof. But then they also were just like, yeah, we're going to give her an on-attack buff here that whenever she attacks with the extra attack, she charges not just her gauge, but the party's gauge by 10%. So any BB Brave Chain, aside from any stars she's going to be genning, any NP she'll get back, any damage she does, she also just, again, functions as a support to also give everybody 10% NP every time she Brave Chains, which is insane because no matter who you're pairing her with, Lady Avalon, Tamamo, or Castoria, all of these art supports have absolutely bonkers NPs that you're always wanting to be like actually having on standby, or you want to be actively firing them, right? Castoria is cleansing your buffs, so you want to have that on standby. It's survivability, want to have that on standby. It also gives you big attack, so it's just good to fire that whenever. Lady Avalon is literally just Arts Merlin with max HP instead of normal HP recovery. So yeah, if you've ever used Merlin, you know you want to be spamming that as much as possible. And Tamamo, we all know how good her NP is, right? Her NP gives you NP back. You do skill refund. You even get a nice little heal as well. Like, it's just crazy that they just slapped all of this on BB for whatever reason. Like, the 30% arts buff was way too much, not needed at all. Then there's an on-attack buff that doesn't just charge her own battery, it's the entire party. It's so dummy nutty. But I guess it fits in line with the theme of her NP, because her NP is a big bungus beatstick, because keep in mind, she should be a free NP5. You should be able to get free well, not free, but you know what I'm saying, use rare prisms. Which, to be fair, aren't like the most rare thing anymore. Like, they do give them out at like regular intervals during like login bonuses or celebrations, so it shouldn't like be that hard to really come across. Like, you'll eventually get your NP5 is what I'm saying. And so it does a lot of damage, and then it charges the entire party's NP gauge by 20% as well. So it's like, if you did a turn where you fired BB's NP, and it was also a Brave Chain, you just gave the entire party 30%, including herself. So like, that's why she loops so easily. It's kind of like Archer Artoria, right? Where not only are they like looping really well because they just have very solid buffs, but they're also just refunding NP as they're going along. So like, they're just guaranteed, especially in a Brave Chain, to just loop like 50 billion times. She also does a little bit of debuff resistance down on the enemy for 3 turns, so you kind of are stacking this down to make that stun on skill 2 a little more guaranteed, which I love the synergy, right? I absolutely love that they give you a stun, and it's like, well, maybe it'll miss because they have like magic resistance, which gives them like an inherent like 15 to 25% chance of resisting the stun. Well, what if I just smack you with a couple of these NPs and I'll just get the stun to be guaranteed and bypass your magic resistance? It's really, really cool. I love the way that BB is built. I love the way she's designed. She is still one of the best free-to-play servants in the game, in my opinion. And now that she's available on both versions of the game, because you can do the Seraph Interlude, I know it's long, I know it's a little annoying to do, but it is like an absolute must play. Like, you gotta go through it to get your compies of BB because she is so good. I still use her to this day. I have other like arts DPS and just other DPSs in general, but I still find ways to use BB and she never lets me down. So if you've ever been like, man, what do I gotta use these rare prisms for? I'm telling you, BB should be competing for like the CEs and everything that are in the shop. Because yeah, the QP CE is nice, Bond is always cool, but what if you just got yourself an absolute banger servant who just crushed everything in her way? Especially in conjunction with double Castoria or a Castoria Tamamo setup, again, because that first skill is on a very low cooldown and Tamamo loves that. Look, all I'm saying is if you have not picked up BB, make sure you go pick her up in the shop. They are giving us more rare prisms, so if you're a newer player and you're like really worried that you'll never get her, don't worry. They do give those out at pretty regular intervals, so just save them up, grab your BB, and go crush some stuff. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about BB and how much success you've had using her. As you guys can see, I enjoy using BB so much that I've been using my Grailed BB in the background the entire time because I think she just absolutely cooks. I think she's really, really good. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace, late guys.